Of Money with Friends, and I'm here with Grant Sabatier he's the author of Financial Freedom, and he's also the creator of Millennial Money. We're going to be taping 2 episodes of Money with Friends, and we're so excited you're joining us. And Grant, welcome to Money with Friends.
So happy to be here.
So Grant is doing his first recording today, so we hope everyone will chime in and say hello wherever you're joining us from. It could be Facebook, it could be YouTube, it could be Twitter. I think I've got everybody covered from those. So please chime in and let us know where you are joining us from. Good. I see a bunch of people hopping on. So I think we're going to have a lively audience. We also had a lot of answers on our Instagram polls and questions. So we'll be sharing them with everyone coming up. Grant, welcome. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, we're going to wait a few minutes just so people can join us. Tell us a little bit about you before we start. Oh, good. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Give us a little background on you for the folks that aren't familiar, the few people, with Millennial Money and with Financial Freedom, your best-selling book.
Yeah. So my story is pretty simple. At the age of 24, I had to move back home with my parents. I was completely broke, like a lot of people often have to, and really started my financial journey then by asking a simple question: what is money? And started thinking through that. And I made a simple list of all the things that I'd been taught about money. And because I didn't have anything else to do, I just went down that list and researched each of those topics and realized that most of what I had been taught about money was not only outdated, but it was actually incorrect. And so some of these assumptions, like money is time and time is money, are complete myths. Time is so much more valuable than money because you can't get it back. And so some of these very central premises, save 5 to 10% of your income and you're going to be okay. These things I started poking holes in and realized I needed a new skill set, built a new skill set, ended up launching a company. And it took me a little over 5 years from the day that I left my parents' house to becoming financially independent and having $1.25 million in savings shortly after turning 30. And then I started writing about it, how I did it, about investing, side hustling, really the holistic picture of using money in your life, and sharing my story, and was able to grow a blog. And I've had over 20 million visitors to Millennial Money since launching in 2015, and wrote a book. And now the book's in 12 languages, and had the opportunity to travel around the world talking about this philosophy and sharing my story. And I feel very grateful for the ability to do that. And I've received, 10 times the amount of love back that I've poured into the work. And so it's just, I feel grateful to be here.
Well, we love having you here, Grant, and we're so excited. As I mentioned, you're going to be taping your first 2 episodes of Money with Friends here. So everyone joining us gets a back, behind the scenes. That's what I'm looking for. We do this live. Behind the scenes view of what goes on at Money with Friends. We're going to be taking your questions and comments. We're also going to be incorporating the poll and questions that we put out on our at Money Friends Pod Instagram. Hi, Kevin. Nice to see you. And let's get with the show. First, I'm just going to roll. This is our making sure we're rolling on our backup audio feed. And okay, you ready, Grant?
Let's do it.
All right. This show is going to go out on Tuesday, October 6th. Oh my gosh, it's October. All right. The case for dying with an empty bank account. We're going to talk about it with the author of the best-selling Financial Freedom, our guest co-host, Grant Sabatier. It is Tuesday, October 6th. Let's talk money with our friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast. I am certified financial planner, Bobbi Rebell, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast, coming to you from my very grown up kitchen in New York City.
What's up?
Grant, who are you? Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Grant Sabatier, the creator of Millennial Money and the author of Financial Freedom, coming to you this fine afternoon from Columbus, Ohio.
Here on Money with Friends, we talk about the latest personal finance headlines, adding the insights and wisdom of our fantastic cast of thought leaders, including Grant Sabatier. We mix in some questions and comments from our money friends, and then we're going to leave you with a takeaway to make it your own. Grant, you missed your cue on your first show. Welcome.
I'm not used to these scripted shows.
We're live, but because we're live, everyone, I do like to script it, especially for our first shows, so that everyone knows when their part is. So, Grant, first of all, as I said, welcome. You are the author of the best-selling Financial Freedom. You're also the creator of Millennial Money. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days. A little TV show in the works.
Yeah, so working on a show about financial independence and financial freedom with four of my really good friends who are writers and thinkers within the financial independence community. So can't share too much about that, but really excited to take this message to a television audience in the very near future. And so I've been spending a lot of time planning and doing screen tests for that television show, and started working on my second book. And really, those really take up most of the time in my life. And I'm doing a fair amount of international interviews. And so it's cool now that my book is in 12 languages. I do interviews in Taiwan and in Turkey and in Japan fairly regularly. So those are often how I fill my mornings, and just excited to be here and chat with you, Bobbi. It's been a long time.
We're excited that you're squeezing us into that really busy schedule. Oh my goodness. Let's see which one of our friends is going to lead us into today's headline. All right. The headline today comes to us from another one of our thought leaders, Farnoosh Torabi, who's going to be here in about a week and a half with my colleague, Joe Saul-Sehy. But right now we're going to get a treat. We're going to get to talk about one of her articles. This one was published by Bloomberg. The title is Why and How I Plan to Die with an Empty Bank Account. A financial philosophy popular among the world's wealthiest can be a worthy aspiration for us all. And I just want to preclude this by saying I did an eye roll when I first read this headline, and I was kind of upset because Farnoosh is a friend of both mine and Grant's, and I don't like to disagree with friends. But when I read the headline, I was like, oh, no, no, no. But something in this, and we'll get to it, may have sort of changed my mind. All right, let me summarize the piece for everybody. Basically, Farnoosh talks about no longer aspiring to leave a financial legacy in the form of an inheritance her children would get after, or her loved ones would get after she passes. Instead, she wants to spend all of her money on meaningful experiences and investing in people and causes she believes in. In the piece, Farnoosh talks about how this has become a popular philosophy with some notable wealthy people, including Laurene Powell Jobs, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett, all of whom plan to leave very little, if any, money to their kids. Very little might be relative. I'm just saying that's my add-on, not Farnoosh's. Farnoosh was inspired by Bill Perkins because his new book is called Die with Zero, Getting All You Can from Your Money and Your Life. The key here, and this is kind of what made me think differently, because at first I was like, I would never slam an article by Farnoosh because we adore her, but I was really not happy with the premise at first. But this is what kind of made me change my mind and brought me on board with Farnoosh. The key is, it's not about cutting out your loved ones. It's about giving them the resources while they're younger and can enjoy them and use them more, rather than inherit, let's say, at age 60, 70 or later. And by the way, one other note, you want to die with zero, not with less than zero, because you don't want to obviously leave people with debt. So Grant, you had already read this actually before I suggested we talk about it. What appealed to you about what Farnoosh had to say?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Bill Perkins' book got a lot of press leading up to the release of, Die with Zero. And the premise is, of course, an interesting one, that you should leave your kids nothing, but you should give them everything while they're alive. And I consider this really kind of a rich person's problem. It's something where naturally I think people are doing the best they can relative to trying to support their kids today and for the future in a lot of cases already. And I think it's one of those areas where Bill, I think, takes it to the extreme, where he's talking about, hey, live it up. If you read his book, is flying to like islands with Richard Branson. He lives it up. He has a really good time with his money, and he has a lot of money. And I think there's some lessons to be learned there. And the thing that I loved about Farnoosh's articles is they're so personal. And she talks about some of these choices that she's made in her own life, recently moving to an area that might be a little bit risky, starting to spend some money. And I think it's the perfect story for this time that we're in today, because all of us with the pandemic have been kind of cut back to our core and had to think about what are those essentials in our life? What trade-offs have we been making? And realizing that the future is increasingly uncertain, and we likely have a lot less control over our lives than we realize. And so let's make sure that we enjoy our lives today and maybe start spending some of that money that haven't been spending. And, it's important to have a relationship with money. And that's what I take away from this article. Farnoosh, very reputable personal finance authority, been writing about money for many years, is now questioning her own relationship with money. And that's the exact thing that you want to do, because you have to look at your life as it is today and the role that money plays into it, and pivot when you need to pivot. And that's exactly what she's doing. So I support her moves and encourage anyone out there to have an active relationship with money and realize that your relationship with it is going to change as you change. So I love the piece.
How does this relate to how your attitude towards money? I mean, have you changed the way that you relate to money? And you've earned a lot of money through your journey, building Millennial Money and coming out of, for people that don't know your background, you were basically almost broke at 24, and now you've built really a small, maybe a very large fortune at this point. How has this changed your attitude and what you do in practice with your money?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate that I've had more money than I'll ever need for the rest of my life now for the past 5 years or so. Money to me really has had diminishing returns, in the sense that I'm at that point now where I'm thinking about, how am I going to give this all away, not only in the far future, but even in the near future. So that's something that I'm actively working on with my wife. We don't yet have kids yet. And so we have an opportunity. We've been giving more money than we ever have this year, particularly to food banks and underserved communities, because they need it so much. And so I've never thought of myself much as a money giver or philanthropist, but I've started to put that hat on and think through that and start giving more money. And so that's been a big shift for me. Instead of just acquiring it, figuring out ways to share it with others, in addition to sharing kind of the information that I have for the past 5 years. And so one of the benefits of just being a naturally frugal person is that you don't spend a whole lot of money. And I really don't. I mean, when I do want to splurge, I do, but I don't have kids. And so I don't spend very much money. And so it just naturally continues to grow. One of the things that I have thought about more is, how do you invest in things beyond money? Because I think increasingly in the future, given the politics and our society and the climate, money in and of itself, and having a lot of it in the future, is not going to be sufficient for a secure retirement or a secure life. You have to manage your money and your life differently, given the uncertainties that are at play and will increasingly be at play. And that's not like a doomsday scenario, and I'm not a super prepper. I don't have a million cans of tuna in my basement, but I think thinking about investing in a broader sense, where are you going to live? What kind of community are you building? Those types of things are becoming increasingly important to me as I look out into the future.
And it's interesting, the way that people react to Farnoosh's story. We did ask our friends, our @ManyFriendsPod is our handle on Instagram. And Grant, this is your first show, so you get to be put on the spot. We did ask them, we said, we're going to be talking about whether you should leave an inheritance or die broke. And we asked them where they stood. The choices we gave our audience on Instagram was leave an inheritance or spend it all. So there's no in between. What do you think our audience said? Where was the votes?
I'm going to say they went with spend it all.
What percentage?
I'm going to say 70%.
No, you're exactly the opposite. 70% said leave an inheritance, and 30% said spend it all. So we have we got a lot of votes. Wow. But let's read. We did ask people to kind of explain what they meant by that. So one of them, so this is, someone that obviously talked about leaving an inheritance, and this is Be Wealthy Not Rich is the handle. And she said, I want to create generational wealth through education as well as financial inheritance. So it's not an only just throw money at your kids. It's also teach them how to use it.
Yeah, I love that. That's absolutely essential. So many parents give money without a rule book, often because they don't have the rule book themselves. And so I think that's absolutely correct. The greatest gift that, even above money, that you can give your child is education and the ability to form their own worldview, but based on good inputs that you share with them.
Yeah. And we have another answer from TB Langer 13, safety net only. What do you think about that? Mm.
Yeah, little, I think it also depends on the child too. And I think that that's
Yes.
something that, because I don't have kids, I don't quite understand. But I think as your child's growing up, certain children are more responsible than others and have different personality types. And so if you have a really impulsive child that is probably going to grow up to be somewhat of an impulsive adult, set up their financial life. Maybe they don't get that money until they're 30 or 35, or maybe they get that money in increments. You can put it in a trust with those sort of those bookmarks. Or if you have a child that is fairly responsible, and that's why always talking about money through the life lens, I think, is very important, especially when it comes to your kids. Being able to say early on, what do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to live? What are some of your dreams? And obviously, when you ask a 5-year-old that, they're going to have a very different answer than probably a 15-year-old. But making that a part of the conversation and explaining how money does give you that opportunity to build a life that you love, and explaining the differences of things like how much money you can make in different careers, and how if you manage money appropriately, if you want to be an artist, you can be an artist. If you want to be a firefighter, you can be a firefighter. If you want to be a lawyer, here's what those trade-offs are. Being open and honest with your kids, I think, is extremely important.
Yeah, and we have Charn 3000 says generational wealth is important, and I'm choosing that. We have a lot of comments, so I apologize for all the ones we're not going to get to. I'm bringing that up because a week ago we did talk with David Bach, our mutual friend, and David Bach talks about real estate as an important way to build generational wealth. So I would like to ask you, Grant, do you think that leaving a home, and the way that David Bach talks about as a way to transfer generational wealth, is the rules are different for that versus just like a cash bank account or cash investments, that kind of thing, liquid investments?
Well, I mean, you can't live in a stock portfolio. So one of the nice things about inheriting a house is that it is a roof over your head. And you do find that a lot of families, when their children inherit their house, they live in it for many generations, especially if they're going to stay locally. That's changed a little bit over the past, several decades, as more people have left their hometowns and moved into cities. But now it's reverting back. And so more people want to live near their families. And so I think the rules are quite different, especially because, you can live in your house. It's something, housing is our biggest expense. And so if you want to give a house mortgage free to your child, or have them inherit it and they can live in it, I mean, you've immediately eliminated one of the biggest expense categories, giving them the opportunity to save more money. Or even on the flip side, naturally real estate in most markets tends to appreciate over time. And so that appreciation, you can sell the house. I mean, it's for many years, a home, your primary residence, has been sort of a holder of wealth and the biggest asset that most Americans own. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be as predictable as it's been in the past, nor should it be your only investment. But I think, setting it up in a trust and making sure that it's transferred in the right way is a no-brainer.
Before we wrap up this discussion, I want to just take one comment from our audience here. We do record this live. You can follow us on Money with Friends on YouTube. Also, I Stack Benjamins, actually in the Stacking Benjamins Facebook group, and on the Twitter feed at Money Friends Pod. We have Kevin here coming to us through the YouTube channel. I like the premise, but it's a balancing act. If you give your money away while alive, how will you take care of yourself? So, and that's a big thing. And Farnoosh talks about that. Don't go into debt, that you really have to be great at planning. Grant, I'll give you the last word for now.
Yeah, I mean, it requires solid financial planning. And I think you want to overestimate your own needs, even though the data shows that you tend to spend less money as you get older, a bit. You also don't know how long you're going to live. And so that's an important piece as well to take into consideration. So you do have to take care of yourself. You don't want to be destitute because you gave all your money away. So it is certainly a balancing act that can get easier over time.
All right, Grant, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought, get ready with your takeaways. But first, I do want to talk about what it's like to run a business. Grant, you run a business, so do many of our friends here in the Money with Friends community. It can be tough. So we have something to make it easier. You can upgrade to the world's #1 cloud business system, NetSuite. Stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you the information you need when you need it. Ditch the spreadsheets and all the old software you've outgrown. NetSuite gives you visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. Everything you need all in one place instantaneously. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in revenue, save time and money with NetSuite. Join the over 21,000 companies using NetSuite right now. Let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/MWF. Schedule your free product tour right now. Again, that is netsuite.com/MWF, netsuite.com/MWF. Grant, takeaway time. Share your wisdom.
Your relationship with money should change as you change. You should constantly be reevaluating it and making sure that your money is helping you live the, to quote David Bach, richest life possible in any given moment. And so it is that fine balancing act where the trade-offs that you're making today, you might not be willing to make tomorrow. But I think now more than ever, you should be prioritizing living a rich life today and not putting it off, because we don't know how long we're going to be here, and we have less control likely than we think. And so I think it's admirable to, if you are a super saver, maybe loosen the reins a little bit and splurge on some of those things that you've been putting off. And on the flip side, if you've been spending too much, maybe now is the perfect time to start saving more. So test yourself, challenge yourself, and figure out what works for you.
I love that you said that, because you live that. I mean, first of all, you moved to New York, which is a very expensive city. Now you've moved for personal reasons to Ohio. And in between that, you also took a road trip around the country I think you were in an RV, right? So you were really, living life to the fullest, not just kind of work. You were working, but also truly experiencing your life. So I think it's so appropriate what you had to say. So first of all, thank you for that. My takeaway, I thought this would be super, super awkward because, like I said, Farnoosh is a friend. And I thought, oh my gosh, how terrible is it? She's cutting off her children. This is horrible. I need to talk to her about this. But once I understood that, in fact, she is actually being more generous to her children. This is such a wonderful gift that she's giving to the next generation. I love it. And I think giving while you were there to enjoy it with your heirs is pretty awesome. Grant, this was an awesome first show with you. Tell us what's going on. You told us a little about the TV show. Anything else you can tell us, maybe about other people that are in it, or does that have to stay a mystery?
Yeah, I can't share anything more about that.
Oh, no.
But I am excited. My next book is, can't release the title yet, but I'm diligently working on it. And it's not about money. It's about what I've learned since becoming financially independent about life and what it means to be alive during these times. And so where financial freedom was my journey from 25 to 30, this book is my journey from 30 to 35 and all those lessons that I've learned. And so if you want to learn more about it, I actually just launched my own personal website. You can check out GrantSabatier.com, where I'm writing about topics beyond money. And I'm excited to explore those other areas of my life and share those things in the very near future.
Congratulations on that, Grant. That's wonderful. And everyone, you can also find out more about Grant and all of our thought leaders on our website, moneywithfriendspodcast.com. And you can get links to the headlines that we speak about there. Just go to the schedule. But the easiest place is by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Just go to Money with Friends on YouTube. You'll find it. We put the links to all of our headlines and where you can be in touch with all of our thought leaders right there for you. So thank you, Grant. We'll see you back tomorrow, right?
Yep. See you soon. Peace.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. Bye.